Welcome everyone to the webinar. This is Speed Reading for Busy People. My name is Paul Nowak, and I'm the founder and CEO here at Iris Reading. Let's jump right into it. You're going to need some handouts for today, and you can find them here. If you go to irisreading.com/busy, that's where you can find all the handouts for today's session. Just so you know what's included there, if you go to that link, it looks a little something like this. And there's a few different documents here. They're all PDFs. You can print them out if you want, if you have the time to, or just have the downloadable PDF. Also, if you happen to have some reading material of your own, you could also include that in today's session. So feel free to have that in front of you. We're going to measure your reading speed. And if you're not already familiar with us, we've got a YouTube channel where we're also streaming this too. If you want to subscribe to it, it's just youtube.com/@ my name, Paul Nowak, and that's where you can find more updates as we post them. If you're not familiar with the work we do at Iris, we work with a lot of universities. We work with high school students too. These are just some of the universities we've worked with. We also work on the corporate end of things. We've done a lot of corporate training. Anybody that's got a lot of reading to do is who we work with, whether it's lawyers, doctors, nurses, business professionals, and then of course at the university level, undergrad, graduate, high school students as well. We don't really deal much with younger kids because you got to know the basics and master really foundational reading skills before you can start reading faster. So I think if you're joining us here today, the prerequisites are that you know how to read. And think about it, when was the last time you learned how to read? It was probably quite a bit ago, right? So this is just a follow-up to that. Our focus as readers needs to be in three key areas. So there's speed, comprehension, and retention. And I do want to differentiate between the two at the bottom here, comprehension and retention, because some people lump them up together, but there's a difference, right? Comprehension is obviously what am I understanding while I'm actually reading the text? And then retention is what do I remember later on? And it's perfectly possible that you could have pretty decent comprehension and then terrible retention, right? We might forget things later. So we want all three of these areas to kind of be balanced, right? Or as efficient as possible. And I asked this question earlier because when people think about when the last time they learned how to read was, most people think about it, well, when I was little, right? When I first learned how to read. And it's so strange because it's not like that with math, science, history, but reading, which underlies most of the other learning that we do, reading is learned just once, and then it's just assumed you know how to read. So this is meant to be kind of like an upgrade of those skills. And let's think about how most people tend to read. Let's say you see this paragraph of text here. Let's say you're reading through this and this green dot represents your eyes going word by word. Most people read a little something like this. And sometimes we don't understand it, so we go back. You ever do that? You ever read a whole sentence or paragraph or page and you feel like I have no clue what I just read? That can be frustrating. Now, there's some old reading habits that got to change if we're going to start going faster and more efficiently. One old habit is something called fixation. It's just something your eyes do. They fixate on one word, next word, and so on. The problem with it, you can read groups of words. So part of what we're going to do today is do a little bit of focus on reading groups of words. You kind of do it to a certain extent when you're driving. You know, if you were driving towards New York City and you saw an exit sign on the highway that said New York City, you wouldn't look at those three words individually. You'd fixate on the side and then fixate back on the road so you don't crash, right? You don't look at each individual word. But if those three words were in the middle of some paragraph, most people would read each and every single word. New York City. That's the habit we want to get out of. And easier said than done, but we're going to work on that. Also, there's a habit of going back to reread, which we've all been guilty of, right? Sometimes you read a sentence, didn't make sense, you read it again. You ever read the same stupid sentence like 7 times? And you're like, why is this not making sense? First of all, yeah, it's possible. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. That's possible. But isn't it also possible that some sentences won't make sense until you read the next sentence, right? Or the rest of the paragraph? That actually happens fairly often when you're reading. You ever watch a movie that's confusing at the beginning? like first 5 minutes in, you're not sure what's going on. Do you stop the movie and say, you know what, let's rewind to the beginning and rewatch that scene? You don't do that. You know how movies are. Eventually, you kind of go with the flow. As you watch the movie, it starts making more sense. Or sometimes you have to wait until the end of the movie for the beginning to be explained. Similar things happen with reading. Sometimes you're reading a paragraph and you're not getting the full idea here until you finish the entirety of that section. So what I would suggest is try to finish a block of text first. Try to finish a paragraph at a minimum. Now at that point you can kind of analyze, okay, did that register? And if it didn't, yes, go back. If you finished a whole paragraph, reread if you didn't understand it. But if it's just one sentence, try to push further beyond that. Now, more importantly, with regression and rereading, we need to find ways to improve focus. Speaking of that, we actually have an entire course that we just launched that's available that you can check out. Let me pull this up real quick so you're aware. If you go to irisreading.com/focus-formula, we launched this course not too long ago, and you can check that out if you're interested in the topic of focus, which I think a lot of people are because we all have trouble sometimes with focus. So again, if you go to irisreading.com/focus-formula, that's where you can find that course. But this is part of the reason why we reread. We lose focus. We'll talk a little bit today on how to improve it, but if you want to do a deep dive into the topic, check out that course that we launched at this link right here. Now, there's a third old reading habit, and this is one of the harder ones to change. You probably remember when you were little, you had to read out loud. Eventually, your teacher said, read in your head, read to yourself. They call that sub-vocalization. That's that voice you hear in your head while you're reading. And we got to change that habit because it kind of forces you to read as fast as you talk. You don't necessarily have to say words in your head to understand what you are reading. But again, this is easier said than done. These habits don't just turn on and off. They got to be changed over time. They do affect our reading speed. Speaking of which, let's measure how fast you currently read. So for this exercise, you can use the materials that we are providing, or you can use your own reading materials. If you have something digitally you want to read, a news article, could be something for work, could be something for school, it could be leisure material, it could be a physical book that you have laying nearby. Grab some material, and if you want some sample material from us, you go to irisreading.com/busy. And like I said, you're going to refer to this article if you're tracking along with our materials, speedtest1.pdf. If you go to that link right there, you know what? I'm going to post that link in the chat here real quick. Materials. Bear with me here just for a second. irisreading.com/busy. What that'll do is it'll take you to a page that looks a little something like this. Like I showed you before, you click on speedtest1.pdf. There it is. It opens up and you can see what that is. Now, this, I'll have it on my slide as well. So if you want to read from my shared screen, it's going to be on the next slide, as you see here. The numbers on the side will help you figure out your reading speed. If you're reading your own material, you're going to have to figure it out on your own, and I'll explain how to do that. But we're just going to read for a minute to begin with, and I'll show the article again. If you're reading from my shared screen, you're going to want to maximize that window all the way. Also, I am going to disable my webcam while you're reading. So if you are reading from my screen, you don't see me moving around. I'll disable my microphone as well so you don't have any distracting noise from my end. Just read the way you normally would. So I'm going to turn off the webcam. You're going to have the article in front of you, or maybe your own reading material. Or if you're following along here, you've got this. And let's just read normally. Okay, so here's the article. I'm going to put a minute on the clock. So you're just going to read for 1 minute. We'll do more reading as we go along here, but let's start with just a minute of reading. Hopefully you have your own material or you have this material. Go ahead and begin reading. Okay, let me stop you there. That is a minute of reading. Take a look at the line where you stopped, and let's figure out what that speed was. Now, if you're using the material that we provided for you, like the article you see on the screen here, it'll tell you precisely what your speed was. If you read to the end of the second paragraph, that's exactly 250 words that you read in 1 minute. So that would be 250 words per minute, or the acronym WPM. Now, if you didn't read to the end of that paragraph, maybe you stopped, I don't know, right over here, and you didn't read the last 3 words, then just subtract 3 from that number. If you're reading from your own reading material, if you have it digitally, like a web page or a PDF, copy all the text you read, copy and paste it into like Microsoft Word, or if you're using maybe you're using a different Google Docs, whatever text editing program you're using, you could usually get a word count from there. And the average is 150 to 250. So you can compare yourself to that, but I do want you to know some nuance here. This average is for the general public. It doesn't really take into account education levels. What about for college educated adults? If you've completed a college education or you're currently in college, as you would imagine, the reading speed for college educated adults is a little higher than those that haven't completed college. Now, I'm not going to say that's an absolute because, some people maybe never went to college and they're self-taught, but generally speaking, right? Because when you're in college, you get a lot of reading, right? Especially at the grad level. For college educated adults, the average reading speed is a little higher. It's 200 to 300. Okay, so you can compare yourself to this or this, whatever you feel appropriate. Like if you were a high school student, I'd probably say this is probably more appropriate to compare yourself to, or you might compare yourself to this. Regardless, I don't care if you're average, above, or below. The goal of today is to make an improvement of some sort. So let's talk about reading material. These averages, they're also based on medium level material. This article is not incredibly difficult to read, right? It's also not a children's book, and it's not advanced level physics. So from material that's kind of middle of the road in terms of difficulty, these are the averages, okay? Obviously, when you're reading something very technical, you got to slow it down. And when you're reading something very easy, you speed it up. And your reading speed's affected by other things too. How much sleep did you get last night? What's your current level of focus? You might read faster in the morning than you do in the afternoon. How familiar are you with the text? Is the material dry and boring? Is the material engaging? Am I interested in this? So all those things tend to play a part. But I want you to think of your reading speed as like a range. Okay, when it's easy material, I'm going faster. Hard, I'm going slower. When it's engaging, interesting, I'm going faster. When it's boring, I'm probably going slower. The goal, whatever your range is, we want to move that range higher. That's the goal. Okay. So, by the way, this article is extracted from this book here, Focus, A Simplicity Manifesto in the Age of Distraction. Great book, pretty quick read. It's like 100 pages or so. The author has given us permission to freely distribute the PDF of that book. So if you want me to email that to you, shoot me an email, paul@irisreading.com. Just let me know you were in the session today, and I'll make sure I get the PDF of that book to you. But let's talk a little more about these averages and what it is on the screen. It's slower on the screen. It can be more frustrating reading on the screen. The average is closer to around 136 when people are reading screen-based material. So something to keep in mind. I want to revisit this habit we talked about, subvocalization. If you're saying all the words in your head, doesn't that mean you're going to read about as fast as you talk? And that's about a bit of a problem, actually, because you can only talk so fast, right? Now, what is the average talking speed? I know some people talk really fast, some people talk at a slower pace, but if you took an average, it turns out the average talking speed is 150 to 250, same number we saw before. Why is the average talking speed the same as the reading speed? Well, it's because of this habit, right? If you're saying all the words in your head, then yeah, that means you're going to read as fast as you talk. And that is precisely the problem. You don't want to get stuck there. Your talking speed is very limited. What do you think is faster, your talking speed or your thinking speed? I'm sure you can think way faster than you can pronounce words, right? Actually, that's if you go to our website, you'll notice at the top left, we've got our tagline, which is reading at the speed of thought. That's part of the reason and part of what's related to this habit. We don't want to get stuck reading as fast as we talk, but what about getting to a speed that's more like a thinking speed, much faster, right? Now, let's start by improving concentration. This is our first tip for getting a faster speed, and it's by trying to hone in on our focus. If we can improve concentration, we'll have a faster speed and we'll have better comprehension. So, how do we do that? The easiest way when you're reading actual printed material is to start using your hand or pen as a guide. Why? Because your eyes are attracted to motion. Something's moving around, it gets our attention. If there was a bee flying around in your room right now, you'd be distracted by it, right? One, because it's a bee, and two, because anything that moves around gets our attention. That's how we're wired as human beings. Now, I know this tip is much more appropriate for reading, print material, right? Because you could actually use your finger or your hand. Some people prefer to use a pen, that's fine too. But creating motion on the page gets your attention and that helps you focus. But what if you're reading on the screen? That's a different matter, right? We'll talk about reading on the screen in a moment here. But if you have some printed material near you right now, I want to give you a couple minutes to read with your hand, finger, or pen as a guide. Now, if you're following along with the materials we have here, maybe you printed them out. By the way, if you don't have them printed and you want to resort to using maybe your mouse as a guide while you're reading, that's fine too. Although I do realize that can be sometimes difficult, like on a laptop or if you're on a tablet. But if you have some printed material, put it in front of you, or if you have this printed out, focusedreading.pdf. Again, it's available at this link, irisreading.com/busy. Okay, so go there, and when you get there, you can download it from this link right over there. Now, the document looks like this. It's actually a 2-page document. So someone's asking, is this recorded or are we live? We are live, although some of you might be watching the recorded version, which is being recorded on YouTube. So yes, we are live, but it will also be recorded. This is a 2-page document. And by the way, if you're joining us live, let us know where you're joining us from. Put it in the chat. We're streaming on multiple platforms here through GoToWebinar, YouTube, some other live streams as well. So we're looking at multiple screens here. Let us know where you're joining us from. I'm from the Miami area right now. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to read for 2 minutes, but you're going to use your hand or your finger or a pen to guide your eyes. And I just want you to get used to that hand-eye coordination. I'm going to turn off my webcam again so I'm not distracting you on the video end of things. Just read for 2 minutes, but try to use your hand, finger, or pen as a guide. Or if you're reading digitally, maybe a mouse. Let's try implementing what we've been talking about here. And I've got 2 minutes on the clock. So 2 minutes is there. Ready, set, and go. Okay, I'm going to call time there. That was 2 minutes of reading. And by the way, if you want to figure out your speed from this document, you're going to have to divide by 2. I hate to break it to you. Sometimes people think, oh my gosh, I'm reading like twice as fast now. Well, you got to divide by 2. We read for 2 minutes. Okay, now, even if we divide by 2, maybe you found yourself reading a little faster. Maybe that's because now you're using your hand or your finger or pen to guide your eyes. If you're going a little faster, great. Maybe it's a little better focus on your end. But this is not the only thing we can do. And obviously, it doesn't account for the fact that you might be reading a lot off the screen, right? Whether it's your phone, tablet, laptop, desktop. Reading on the screen is a different challenge. So let's get into that. We're going to take some sample reading material here, and I'll show you how to read it faster using a program that we created called Accelerator. If you go to accelerator.com, that's where you can find it. And it's just a free speed reading application where you copy and paste your text into the box and hit begin. And then when you click read, the words are going to start blinking on the screen at whatever speed you set in the program. Okay. Now I've copy and pasted the text from this article right here, and it's from The Onion. And if you're not familiar with The Onion, you can see this is America's finest news source. That's what we're going to be reading from. We're going to read this article, Injured Birthday Clown Taken Behind Bouncy House to be Shot. Okay, let's read this one. I copy and paste the text in here. We click begin, and I want you to focus in the middle of the screen here. We're going to be reading this. Let's start at 250 words a minute, which is, maybe a little faster than average compared to the average people reading on the screen. But let's see if you can keep up. We're just going to go 250 words a minute through this Onion article. Okay, let's try it out. Here we go. All right, so that was 250 words a minute. Were you able to keep up with that, or was it a little too fast? Let us know in the chat if you like, or the comments, because some of you are going to watch the recorded version of this. You guys want to try going faster? Let's try going maybe 300 words a minute. All right, so we're going to take another article. We'll also take it again from the world famous Onion website. So here we have Johnson & Johnson introduces nothing but tears shampoo to toughen up newborns. All right, let's read this article. It's a little more in length, okay? So we're going to have to be a little more focused as we read here. And we're going to go, instead of 250, we're going to go 300 words a minute, okay? So we're going to copy and paste the text. I already did that here. We click begin. By the way, I do see a comment in the live chat here that I see the comment here. Darshnik says, issue is I can read fast, but my brain won't retain what I've learned. So it's a regression then for GMAT passages. All right. There might have been some typos in there, but for the most part, I understand what you're saying. You're talking about GMAT passages not being able to retain. Stick around. We're going to talk a little later about, I'll address that, reading test passages, because that's a different kind of reading. When you're reading news versus studying a textbook versus leisurely reading, maybe reading a novel, reading on a test where you have a passage and then questions, that's a different challenge, of course. So we will address that, so stick around as we go along. Right now, we're just going to try going a little faster through another Onion article here. And we're going to go 300 words per minute. So focus in the middle of the screen here. I'm going to change the settings, and we're going to change specifically the words per minute setting. Change that to 300. You may have noticed it was blinking 3 words at a time. That's because the setting here is set to 3. That's the chunk size. And we're going to set that and see if we can go a little faster, reading groups of words in 3. So focus in the middle of the screen here. Let's try it out. We're going a little bit faster, but we're going through this article. Johnson & Johnson introduces nothing but tears shampoo to toughen up newborns. Here we go. Alrighty, that was 300 words a minute. How about that time? Let us know if you're keeping up still in the chat or the comments. That's 300 words a minute. You guys want to bump it up a little more? Let's try 350. Okay. Now I'm incrementally going up. I do realize some of you maybe you're already trained in reading faster and 300 words a minute is weak sauce. I get it. Keep in mind, we're also doing this from the standpoint of assuming some people are maybe new to learning speed reading techniques. So that's where incrementally increasing. You might want to do this on your own. If you're comfortable with 300, try 350. If you're comfortable at 350, try 400. I'm going in 50-word increments. You don't have to do that, but find out where your comfort level is, and then we're going to try to push ourselves from there. Let's take some new material from the Onion again. We're going to read this article now. Snowstorm in Chicago delays hundreds of morning murders. All right, let's read this right here. Here we go. We copy and paste the text. This is a short article here. We're going to go 350. By the way, I could change my speed with some keyboard shortcuts at the bottom. You can just use the up and down arrow keys to increase or decrease by 25. Space bar, that's pretty important too, to pause or play. If you got to go back, use the left arrow key to go back. But right now, I'm going to hit the up arrow key a couple times. Notice this is going to change. Up and up. Now we're at 350 words a minute. Even if this is too fast for you, do your best to see if you can keep up. It's actually good to challenge yourself. I do see some people sent me private chats or in the live chat that 300 words a minute was a bit challenging. Hey, that's okay. How do we get better at things? Trying to push ourselves out of our comfort level, right? That's actually how I got better at public speaking. I used to be absolutely terrified to speak in front of a group of people. I used to write everything down on a sheet of paper, and then I would read from the paper, and I would literally be like trembling like this to where people could see it moving around and maybe even hear it shaking. I got over that by kind of forcing myself to get out of that, you know, comfort level of not speaking in front of groups of people. Although right now I'm just yelling at a computer screen, so that's its own challenge. But I appreciate you guys commenting in the chat. That lets me know people are on the other end. Or if you're commenting in the comment section in the recorded version, we do take a look at that. So any questions you have, put it in the chat, put it in the comments as we go along here. Right now, we're going to go 350 words a minute. See if you can still keep up. Again, even if it's too fast for you, do your best. We're going through this article. Snowstorm in Chicago delays hundreds of morning murders. True story. Let's try it out. Here we go. Alrighty, that was 350 words a minute. If you're still there, keeping up, great. If it was a little too fast, hey, this is just good practice. Okay, I know these are kind of inconsequential articles, not super important, but you can practice on whatever material you like, so long as you can copy and paste the text. You can use that application. It's free at accelerator.com. Now, next question for you. How do you get better at anything you know the answer? Practice. So when we're talking about practice, when it comes to reading, how do we build up our speed? You can practice these drills. We call them speed drills. And the goal of a speed drill, over time, it can help you increase your speed if you practice them. We're going to do a sampling of drills here. We're not going to do an intense, when I say intense, we're not going to do like 20, 30 minutes of drills. When we do longer workshops, like at companies and schools, if you want to invite us to your organization, you can reach out to us. Again, irisreading.com, contact us, and we'll set something up. But we do an intensive amount of these drills, and they help people increase. The goal of a drill is to go faster than usual, a lot faster than usual. I like to compare it to like running a sprint. So what are we going to do here? We're going to take material that you already read. Okay, so let me give you an example here. You already read some material, right? You got this Age of Distraction article that we were reading earlier, right? What we're going to do is we're going to go through that same text and we're going to go faster. By the way, I do see a question from Zach. Is there an Accelerator app or just the web-based application? Right now, just a web-based application. We are working on turning that into an iPhone and Android app. But right now, it's just web-based, copy-paste. We are working on turning other features on as well, like a Read It To Me feature, saving articles for later. So you can always go to the website to see any updates on that. Now, as far as drills go, let's see here. Oh, I see a question from Nick, and I do want to address it before we move on. What if you're unable to copy and paste? I read a lot of digital books for work and study. Yeah, I realize sometimes you have PDFs where you can't quite copy the text, or it might be something to do with, copyright management. So let's say you're just reading a lot on the screen. There is another technique where we call it a multi-fixation type technique, where you make multiple fixations per line. So instead, you see there's 17 words on this line here. Imagine you broke that up into 4 parts, like first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, and you just bounce your eyes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, how many fixations you make depends on how wide or how narrow the line is. So if you got a very narrow line, you might just do 2 fixations, like 1, 2, 1, 2, split it in half. Or you might have a longer line where you do 3 fixations per line, like a beginning, middle, end, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if it's not convenient to use your hand or cursor, if you can't copy and paste to a program like Accelerator, then try breaking up your line into 2, 3, 4 parts. I don't say 5 because usually at some point they're going to make the line cut off. 17 is actually fairly wide for a line. If you're reading a physical newspaper, an old school newspaper, which most people don't read, those lines are very narrow, right? Those you might just go 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, or 1, 2, 1, 2. Nick also asked, could I use the cursor? Absolutely, you could use your cursor. Or for me personally, I'm operating off of a laptop right now. I don't mind touching my screen. It's not a touch screen, so I could technically use my finger on the screen. I know that looks a little weird if you're in a public setting, but if you don't want to use your finger when you're reading digitally, bounce your eyes, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or, like I said, use the cursor. That will initiate that motion. It'll get you focused. All right. Thank you, Nick, for the questions, by the way. And anyone else, feel free to ask questions or put them in the comments, and we'll answer them in a future video on the YouTube channel. So what we're going to do right now is a speed drill, okay? And the drill, like I said, is about purposely going faster. How are we going to do that? We're going to take material we already read. You read the first minute of this article, right? You got to a certain point. Maybe you got up to here. Maybe you got down here. Maybe you got somewhere over here. Whatever line you got up to, I want you to get to the same line from the beginning. But I'm only going to give you 40 seconds. So the goal here is to go faster than you would normally read, and it's not that hard because you already read the first minute of this article. But the real goal of this exercise is to see words at a faster than usual rate. Okay. Also, if you have it printed out or if it's convenient for you to do so, I would encourage you to use your hand, finger, or pen as a guide. I realize that's not possible for everyone, but at the very least, everyone has to go faster than usual because I'm only giving you 40 seconds. I'm going to use the timer on my phone here, and I'll turn off my webcam. Let's do our first speed drill. Again, think of it like running a sprint, okay? Get to the line you read up to in 40 seconds or less. If you get there early, you can stop, or if you want to just continue reading, that's fine too. All right, 40 seconds from the top. Ready, set, and go. All right, I'm going to call time right there. That was 40 seconds for our first drill. Did you make it to your line? Hopefully you did. And everyone's got to go faster for this next drill because even if you didn't make it to your line, I'm going to cut down the time and you got to go faster. Everyone's got to go faster. We're going to start again at the top. You got to make it to your line, whatever line you read up to during the first minute of reading we did. You got to make it to that same spot or further in 35 seconds. Okay, so a little bit less time. Let's see if you can get there. And again, I'm putting 35 seconds on the clock. You can think of this like running a sprint. Okay, or another way to think of it, you're skimming what you've already read. Why? Because we want to get used to seeing words faster. That's how we're going to train ourselves to get faster with our reading, even if that means it's material we already read or comprehension is so-so. Let's just get used to seeing the words faster. Okay, are you ready? From the top, 35 seconds, ready, set, and go. All right, let me stop you there. That was 35 seconds. Did you make it to your line? Hopefully you did. Let's switch things up. Let's go back to this other article. Do you remember this one? The Art of Focused Reading and Research in the Digital Age. You read for 2 minutes here. Now, this was also the article that I asked you to read with your hand or your finger or a pen as a guide. You can keep doing that if it's convenient to do so. I would recommend it if you can. But we're doing, again, a speed drill. So the goal is going to be this. We're going to start at the beginning of this article. You read this for 2 minutes, right? You got to a certain point. Maybe you got up to here. I don't know. Maybe you got to the second page. You got up to here. Where did you get up to in 2 minutes? That spot, you got to get there in a minute and 10 seconds. Okay. So it's not a lot of time. I want you to not read this carefully, and I want you to speed through it. I want you to run a sprint through this text that you already read. Let's get used to seeing the words fast. Okay, from the beginning, a minute 10. Ready, set, and go. All right, that was a minute 10. Did you make it to your line? Hopefully you did. And we're going to do one more drill. Okay. Now we do more drills if we had more time, and I'll show you how you can do them on your own. But the reason I'm going to cut it off after this drill is I want to get to other topics as well. We want to talk about comprehension and other techniques. So right now you're going to have one more drill. It's going to be a minute flat. Now what you got to do is you got to start at the beginning, and you got to get through all the text you previously read here. Remember, we gave you 2 minutes to read to a certain point, wherever that may be. So that 2 minutes of reading you did has to be completed in 1 minute. So you got to go twice as fast. Okay, so you either got to make it to your line or further. If you make it to your line, you can stop or you can read, continue reading. But the goal is at a minimum, make it to that line that you read up to. Okay, and I'm only giving you a minute, half of the time. Go twice as fast. Okay, are you ready? From the beginning, ready, set, and go. All right, that's time. That was 1 minute. If you made it to your line, very good. Those were just a quick little set of drills, specifically speed drills. What we're going to do now is we're going to go back to normal reading. So I want you to take some new material now. And if you've been following along with our materials, you're going to use this one, Speed Test 2. The file name is speedtest2.pdf. Again, all handouts available here, irisreading.com/busy. If you're using your own material, swap out to a different article or a different chapter or a different section, new material. We're going to go back to normal reading. Here's the article that I was referring to, the Speed Test 2. Looks like this. I'll have it on my screen. But again, you can download it at this link right over there, Speed Test 2. So we've got it on the screen. Since we're going back to normal reading, what I mean by this is slow it down. Not too slow, but also not too fast. I want you to read at whatever speed is comfortable enough to understand this material. Now, you could still use your hand, finger, or pen as a guide, but go at a speed where you could comprehend it well, okay? And we're just going to read for a minute, and then I will stop you. So you should have it in front of you. Ready, set, and go. All right, let me stop you there. That was a minute of reading. Take a look at the line where you stopped. Let's figure out what your speed was. And, write that number off to the side. I'm curious to know, did you read faster? And you could let me know in the comments or in the chat. If you read a little faster, great. It's not uncommon. Sometimes people make their first improvement by just doing a little bit of practice with these drills. Now, if you didn't make an improvement, we didn't do all that much practice. So I want you to know how these drills work. When we're doing these drills, And by the way, I have this slide here because a lot of people do make an improvement. So that's why I like having the success baby here. The way the drills work is like being on the highway. When you're on the highway, you're driving faster than usual. How does it feel when you get off the highway? Feels kind of slow. So the goal and the idea here is you do these drills and you're going at a much faster than usual pace, but you're just seeing the words fast. Then you get off the highway, right? You stop doing the drills. You go back to normal reading. And now you might be going a little faster than usual, but it doesn't feel that way, right? Because you got used to practicing at a higher rate. Just like when you're driving 80 miles an hour on the highway and then you get off the highway and you're still going 40 or 50 and you don't realize it, same kind of effect is happening, okay? Now, let's talk about comprehension. An easy way to improve comprehension. Modify your speed. Sometimes slow it down, sometimes speed it up. Again, just like if you're driving. When should we slow down and speed up? A good rule of thumb to follow is slow down on the first sentence of a paragraph. Okay, let's say you have an article like this, and this is one of the materials, by the way. The article's title is India's Skills Famine. It's this one right here where it says India, and the article looks like this. So I'm saying to get better comprehension, slow down on the first sentence of a paragraph and then speed up a little bit through here. Slow down here, speed up here. Slow down, speed up, slow down, speed up. Now, why would we slow down on the first sentence of a paragraph? It's probably obvious to you, right? The first sentence is usually what? Main idea, right? Or topic sentence, or however you want to call it, intro, thesis. We know the way we were all taught to write, make your point and then give your details, right? You got another point to make, another idea, new paragraph. So this is a good way to get better comprehension. So let me zoom in on this first paragraph so you can see, and you have it maybe downloaded in front of you, but if I zoom in here on India's skills famine, first sentence reads, the economic transformation of India is one of the great business stories of our time. That sounds like a main idea to me. I'm going to take that and run with it. I'm going to go a little faster. Next paragraph. But India has run into a surprising hitch on its way to superpower status. Its inexhaustible supply of workers is becoming exhausted. Another main idea. Let's go a little faster. Third paragraph. How is this possible in a country that every year produces 2.5 million college graduates and 400,000 engineers? Interesting. Let me pick up the pace now. So when I say slow down and speed up, I don't mean drastically. I don't mean read this extremely slowly, just a little slower. And when I say speed up, I don't mean go really, really fast. I mean just a little faster. It's just like when you're driving, when you're approaching a red light, slowing it down because of maybe traffic, you're just gradually, pressing on the brake. And then when you're speeding up, you're gradually speeding up, right? It's not pedal to the metal. So we have this sentence right here. There was a time when many economists believed that post-secondary education didn't have much impact on the economic growth. All right, let me get my details about that. The irony of the current situation is that India was once considered to be overeducated. Interesting. Let me get my details about that. So we're slowing down, speeding up. Here's another one. Since the Second World War, the countries that have made successful leaps from developing to developed status have all poured money, public and private, into education. And now we speed up. Here's the last paragraph. India has taken tentative steps to remedy its skills famine. The current government has made noises about doubling spending on education, and a host of new colleges and universities have sprung up since the mid-1990s. And then we speed up. So slow down, speed up. The idea here is that changing up your speed is going to help you to pay attention. Why? Because we pay attention to things when there's changes being made, when there's changes in speed. I'll give you an example. When you're driving, if you're driving in the countryside, straight road, no traffic, your speed is pretty much the same, right? Not a lot of fluctuations, not a lot of changes. So even though you're focused on the road, you're not as focused as when you're driving in a city-like environment, right? When you're driving in a city, in an urban area, you're constantly speeding up, slowing down, stopping. You're slowing down to make turns. You're trying not to run over pedestrians, looking at streetlights. All these things force you to slow down and speed up. And as a result, you're more focused in the city environment because of the changes of speed. And actually, doesn't the same thing happen when people talk? You ever have a teacher that spoke in a monotone voice? Like imagine if I was doing today's session and I'm like, hello everyone, my name is Paul Nowak and today we're going to be talking about speed reading. So okay, let's go ahead and start measuring our, oh my God, it's hard to pay attention when people talk that way, right? Because the speed of a monotone voice is the same. The volume of a monotone voice is pretty much the same. And if there's no changes, we lose attention. Now, how does this relate to reading? Well, when you're reading, you want to constantly be changing your speed. When? First sentences. Slow it down, speed it up. Slow it down, speed it up. Most people, what they'll do is they'll go exactly the same speed on every line. Your brain is going to get bored if you do that because you need those changes in speed to get better comprehension, to maintain focus. So try this out. We're not going to do an exercise for it right now because you can do it on your own. But there's one other tip I want to cover before we wrap things up today. And this is very important. If you're going to read anything, practically anything, a good strategy if you want to get better comprehension, a faster speed, is to always inspect what you read. What I mean by that is get familiar with it, inspect it first. So the reason I read the first sentence of each paragraph out loud is actually to demonstrate this point. If you were going to read this article right now, wouldn't you read it faster than usual because you know what it's going to be about? Wouldn't your comprehension be better because we read the first sentences? You know it's about India, shortage of skilled labor, the economy, education. Now, if you're going to read this, you're just picking up your scraps, getting your details. That's what inspecting is all about. Now, how you inspect depends on how the material is formatted. With this first sentence of each paragraph. Now, there was a question earlier in the chat from Darshnik. What about the GMAT? Well, if you're reading on something like the GMAT or any other test passages for that matter, it might look something like this, right? This article has under 1,000 words, and then you might have questions that follow. So step one should be read the first sentence of each paragraph. Get your main ideas. Step two, before you read the article, you should actually read the questions first. So what I would say is, and some people do this already as a tactic, it's a good strategy, I would say, reading the questions first. But before you do that, I would say read the first sentence of each paragraph and then read the questions, and now read the entire passage. That's going to help you when you're dealing with tests, whether it's the GMAT, the GRE, the LSAT, the MCAT, ACT, SAT, all those tests, or any other similar. This is a good strategy. But what if you're reading something more complex? It could be a chapter in your textbook. It could be a report. It could be a journal article. You read the introduction first, then you read the headings, subheadings, then you read boldface words, anything jumping off the page in italics. You might have charts, tables, diagrams. I'm reading just the titles of those charts, tables, or diagrams. When I get to the end, I'm going to read my conclusion. If I have questions at the end of my chapter, I'm going to read my questions. So this is how you might inspect a longer piece of text. Now, I understand you might not do this for novels, fine. But when you're dealing with a textbook chapter, a report, a PDF, where it's like, 20, 30, 50 or more pages, this is a good strategy for inspecting before you read. You always want to inspect before you read. Think of it like, what do you do before you play a sport or exercise? You warm up, right? You stretch out. This is like the reading equivalent, except you don't have to worry about touching your toes. So get familiar with something before you read it, and then you'll read it faster. You'll have better comprehension. So as far as reading and remembering goes, how do we remember things? Repetition, right? Repetition's how you remember. I'll repeat that. Repetition's how you remember. So how do we get our reps in? When you're reading, you don't want to read chapter 5 times. So you follow what we call the IRIS method. IRIS is an acronym for how you would approach material, and it all starts with the letter I, which is inspect. All right, I'm familiar with the material. Now I'm going to read the material. All right, you're done reading the material. What do you do when you're done with a chapter? Most people just go to the next chapter or they stop reading. Take a moment to inquire about what you've read. That means ask questions. Questions help focus the mind. What did I just read? What are the most important topics? This is kind of where you revisit your purpose. What do I have to memorize for the test? Asking questions help. And then you might get to this final step, which is store. How am I going to store or memorize that information? By the way, if you go to our website, we've got a course on memory where we do a deep dive into it. You can check that out at irisreading.com. That's if you're interested in diving deep and learning memory techniques. Here's how you continue improving your speed if you're interested. And if you want to practice on your own, or if you want guided practice, you can take one of our longer, more advanced courses. One type of drill we do in the courses, and there's a number of them, but one type is speed drills. Like we did today, the goal is to see words at about double your normal speed. So actually, I see an interesting question from Nick. Would you also use AI to help with comprehension? Absolutely. We actually have a ChatGPT productivity course on our website that talks about using AI to enhance your learning and productivity. So absolutely, I would definitely use AI to supplement my reading, my comprehension, my overall learning. As far as the drills go, we want to go at about double our normal speed. So here's some unofficial homework for you. I say unofficial because I can't force you to do this. I can't verify. So step one, read your material. Maybe you've got a book you're reading right now and you're on chapter 3, read chapter 3. Or read a short article or whatever it is you're reading. But keep track of the time. Maybe you read for 20 minutes. Step 2, do a speed drill, and that is simply skimming what you've already read in half the time. So let's say on step 1 you read for 20 minutes. Step 2 is going to be doing a 10-minute drill because we want to go twice as fast. So we're going at double our normal speed through the material we already read. 10 minutes a day for 2 weeks is a great way to follow up today's session. And what happens is you start maybe at an average speed and you're practicing at 400. Now you're up to 250 and you're feeling better, more confident about your reading speed. So now you got to practice at 500 so you can get to 300. And this is how we could step by step start building our speed over time. So if you're doing it during this process, time yourself. Inspect first. You don't have to time yourself here, but time yourself when you're reading the chapter or the report or the article. Let's say again, maybe you read for 20 minutes. You do a little inquiry step where we, just ponder, the meaning of life, or actually the questions that we should be asking. What did I just read? What are the most important takeaways? When I'm reading business books, I'm asking, how can I apply this to my business? How can I apply this to my life? If I'm a student, I'd be asking, what's going to be on the test? What do I got to memorize? And then instead of the final step being store, where you actually memorize the material, and again, you could check out our memory course, a little self plug for that. But another way to finish off this process with the drills is a speed drill at the end. 10 minutes if you read for 20, or maybe you read for 12 minutes, then you do a 6-minute drill. Maybe you read only for 4 minutes, short little tiny article, you read it in 4 minutes, do a 2-minute drill. That would be a good way to practice getting faster, doing these drills, and you could even practice those drills with that accelerator program. Go at a speed that's comfortable first, and then speed through that text twice as fast. Okay, 10 minutes a day, 2 weeks. Also, if you want access to that book, great book on the topic of focus, shoot me an email and I'll send it over to you. My email is just paul@irisreading.com. Let me know when you were in the session. Let me know what you thought about it as well. Also, we have a new course on the topic of focus that we just launched. If you go to irisreading.com/focus-formula, that's where you can find that course. And I think you'll find it very helpful. All of us are dealing with the challenge of trying to maintain our focus, right? We're getting distractions left and right. So check that out. And if you're interested in any of the advanced courses, you go to irisreading.com/courses. We've got a speed reading mastery course. We've got courses on comprehension, courses on maximizing memory. If you're interested in memorization, note-taking as well, personal productivity. We've got that ChatGPT course as well. And like I said, the focus formula is the course on focus. If you want a little discount, use this code, too much to read, and that'll give you an extra 20% off. All right, now, if you want additional updates, we're going to be doing this through the YouTube channel. We're planning on putting out more content, so you can subscribe. Or if you're on the video right now, hit that like button. That helps get it out to more people. Put comments and questions. We'll take a look at them. We'll post videos related to those comments and questions. youtube.com/@Paul Nowak. That's my name right there. Here's my other info if you want to email me or check us out on any of the other social sites you see on the screen here. Feel free. But otherwise, I want to thank you so much for your time and attention. I was shooting for an hour and looks like we got about an hour of content in. Thank you all so much. If you like what we're doing here at Iris, tell your friends about us. And if you don't like what we're doing, tell your enemies about us. Thank you all so much and have a great rest of the day. Take care.